Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 88 of the Level Flight podcast, the Nate Schmidt episode. The only guy to score a goal for the Jets in Game 4, but nonetheless, we've got a full crew today. My name's Connor, joined by Brian and Elliott. Brian, how you doing?
I've been better. I mean, we chatted at length on Sunday's LFP Live that there was reasons to remain positive. We started looking for the good, predictions,
Yeah.
picking the Jets, and then they came out and when I first had the chance to tune in, I think the shots at that point were 12-2, and I kind of knew where things were going from that point forward.
Yeah. Elliott, how you doing?
Could be better. I said to the guys, it's nice, and I feel bad for both of them to cheer for a team that wins sometimes. And no, I'm not talking about the Jets. I'm talking about the University of Kansas Jayhawks. So this team is. I can't say that. That's trademarked by Steve Dangle. Never mind. I'm not going to finish my sentence there. This team is ruining my life, but
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's get into it because that Game 4 was one to forget. A 5-1 loss to the Winnipeg Jets, for the Winnipeg Jets, to the Colorado Avalanche, of course, as they're now down 3-1 in the series. A good first period. The Avs, they do come out hot, 12-2 in shots, leading 1-0. But then the Jets completely flip the script. The Jets have the next 7 shots on goal. Nate Schmidt scores, long offside review. I still thought that was offside, but the goal stood. And it was a tie game after one. And then the second period is where things fell apart. It was very similar to the third period in Game 3. The Jets taking a million penalties, unable to kill them all off. And they just imploded for the middle frame. What did you see from this game, Brian?
I listen, at the risk of sounding like entirely and completely negative about it, this felt like their response game for especially the guys who were here last year of we're not the same team, and they failed miserably at doing that. And this was their opportunity to make a statement that this is not the same team from last year. We can face the adversity in the playoffs, and they come out flat, and they get brutally outshot. They do everything that they were doing wrong in the first several games, and then get absolutely pummeled. And yeah, it truly felt like their moment to prove people wrong in thinking that, oh, this is just the Jets, they'll cough it up. And they did nothing to disprove that. They came out flat, and in a game that they needed to win to send the series back tied to Winnipeg, because let's be honest, I don't have a lot of, you know, belief in saying that against this Colorado team with what we've seen them do to the Jets for the bulk of the series, I can't see them winning 3 straight here. So, you needed to win today to, keep it even, or you need to win on the Sunday game there to keep it even going into Tuesday's Game 5, and they did nothing that gave me the appearance that they learned from their mistakes early in the series and then of last season and all the past playoff sort of blunders.
Yeah, agreed. They've had a lot of letdowns in games like that. Like for example, Game 6 against the St. Louis Blues in 2019, where your backs are against the wall. That was actually a must-win, where the Jets are going to have a must-win tonight when you're hearing this. And we'll see, because in must-win scenarios last year against Vegas, even they've just come out completely flat and look very disinterested, with a lack of pushback. And we'll see what happens tonight in Game 5 in front of the whiteout with their season on the line. But Elliott, what did you see from Game 4?
So just to be completely fair up the front here, I'm going to be completely unlike Brian. I'm going to be completely negative because I can't be positive anymore. If you guys have listened to me through the first 3 games of this series, I've been completely positive about the Jets turning this around. I can't defend them anymore. And I also don't think, as much as, people want to blame the players, I don't think this is a complete player issue at this point. There's things that are showing up when you watch the game that actually don't have to do with players in terms of effort or not trying to make plays or whatever. a guy notorious of kind of skating around and floating around and not really doing his thing is, I mean, you could either say Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor, and I haven't really seen that from either of them. Like that's they have not been the problem, right? And you look at the rest of the lineup. For the most part, I don't think this is. It's somewhat of a player issue because there are some breakdowns in coverages at times. But for the most part, I'm starting to feel like the Avs and Jared Bednar have picked apart the system that the Jets have built, because you've now played 82 games, right? You now have enough film, and if you're a smart enough coach, I don't care what sport you're playing, there is no perfect system. There's always a way to pick apart another system. That's why you get I'm going to use the NBA as an example just because it's something I'm familiar with. You see coaches like Greg Popovich and Eric Spoelstra in the finals, and they pick each other apart. That's why the Spurs and the Heat traded championships, because both teams made adjustments and they both always went back and forth. I think we're now at the point where we're having a situation where Rick Bowness is so stuck into not making any changes in terms of his system that he thinks that flipping the lines and player combinations around is going to fix the issue, which it's not, because I'm not going to go on a complete full rant here because I probably could talk about yesterday's lines at length, and I don't want to because it's not the lines, Bones.
I mean,
I don't know.
The lines, lines, like, they'll be different for game 5.
Again,
I think, but the point that I want to bring up in terms of coaching, I think one thing looking back on this series, and we can do a bigger like series recap at the end of it, maybe next episode. But I think one thing that we underestimated was we talked about the goaltending advantage for the Jets, which hasn't really been there. We talked about the depth, which hasn't really been there. One thing we didn't talk about was the coaching advantage that the Avs had, like the wide coaching advantage that the Avs had, the ability to adapt, the ability to, after game 1 or in the middle of game 2, throw Val Nichushkin up with Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and have that line wake up because your depth carried you in the first 2 games, and now your top line's going, and Val Nichushkin scored a hat trick yesterday. Like, the ability to make adjustments on the fly, pick apart the Jets system, things like that is a coaching advantage that we just didn't really talk about in potential advantages and disadvantages in this series. And then when you see David Gustafsson come out of the lineup, fine, for Axel Jonsson-Fjällby to add more speed and forechecking and penalty killing, and AJF doesn't take a penalty killing shift, and then Brendan Dillon's out, cut his hand, he's day-to-day. You put in Logan Stanley, who struggled mightily in games 1 and 2 to move the puck and beat Colorado's forecheck. And what happens
a penalty killer.
Game, and a penalty killer, but he took 2 penalties. You can't kill a penalty if you're in the box. And he struggles to beat Colorado's forecheck. What does he do on their opening goal? Turns the puck over. Their forecheck is all over that pairing, and Lehkonen scores, and they're getting shelled 12-2 in shots. So you put in Stanley, who struggled in games 1 and 2. You put in AJF to penalty kill, and he didn't penalty kill. Meanwhile, Cole Perfetti and Colin Miller are just asking if you want more popcorn from the rest of the press box. Like, these 2 guys can help way more than the other 2 guys did in this game. And yeah, Logan Stanley, pretty negative impact for just one guy in a single game, having a turnover lead to a goal and then 2 penalties. Like, that's in a playoff series,
and look confused why he got the penalties in the first place when they were quite blatant.
Undisciplined. Yeah, like, all the penalties, you could talk about the refs, you could talk about the officiating, you talk about the fact they weren't even. These are penalties. Like, they're just undisciplined penalties. And I don't know what you thought of the lineup decisions, Brian, but that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest thing for me is the lack of a Cole Perfetti in the lineup when you have been unable to crest 2 goals in 3 games here. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the coaching advantage, where clearly Jared Bednar has made an adjustment to better limit the team that scored 7 goals in the opener. Obviously, some of that's Alex Georgiev just allowing a lot, but the Jets were still creating chances that were way up and tight. So it's clearly a game plan for Colorado to, do a better job of limiting that, and it's worked. But you've got a guy who has 19 goals not playing for what? For what reason? So you can play AJF not on the penalty kill, so you can make sure. Like, I saw, like, a great thing is the fact that Perfetti with Nemestikov and Iafallo in their limited minutes they've been spectacular together. They have, actually done a really good job of, maintaining possession. They create chances, they create shots. Like it's not like he's, not rolling out there because they suck. No, they've worked together. And
Yeah.
to have a guy with almost 20 goals sitting in the press box when you can't score a goal to save your life, it's a horrible indictment of sort of where the mindset is, because I guarantee you it's because, oh, he's too small. That's like it's really but like you brought up a great point on Twitter yesterday where he's got
I was
a
just gonna
very
say that,
similar
yeah.
frame to Arturi Lehkonen, who is he is an absolute monster in the playoffs. People have brought up the speed, like they haven't watched Tyler Toffoli try and bag it down the ice. Like it's nothing that can be excused with any of those stereotypical old style excuses where it's like, oh, too small, not fast enough. There's guys who are at his size doing better, and guys who skate as fast, if not slower than him, still in the lineup. I don't want to hear those excuses. You've got 20 goals sitting in your press box. You can't score. Why isn't he playing?
Agreed. And yeah, you brought up the Arturi Lehkonen point, and I brought up that point on Twitter, and people were quick to say, "Whoa, you can't compare Arturi Lehkonen and Cole Perfetti." I'm not comparing the two. I'm saying looking at a guy's height chart and weight chart and saying, "Oh, he won't work in the playoffs," is outrageous. Like he's one of the best passers. He's a very patient passer. What if that's the thing you need to counter the Avalanche's speed? Like the Jets haven't been able to move the puck. He's a good puck mover no matter where he is on the ice. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work better than a 5-1 loss and a 6-2 loss on the road. Like I just the people that are still opposed to it now with their backs against the wall, seeing what we saw in Denver, like I don't
give
know.
him a chance, man. Like,
oh, and a common response here was until Perfetti hones his game to be effective in the playoffs, I wouldn't count on him for much. Cole Perfetti has not played a playoff game. So we don't know.
You don't know if he's going to go out there and play the best game of his career in the playoffs. Like, you can't even, like, you're not going to give this guy a chance. Like,
and I think another thing with Perfetti was, okay, he had a great first 50 games of the year. He was great the whole time. Then he clearly hit the wall, which fine, happens for a young player. It's his first full season where he's not hurt. He hit the wall. Happens. Rick Bowness acknowledged that he hit the wall. You sit him for, I don't know, a week and a bit, have him watch the games. Then he comes back in for Tyler Toffoli, who was sick, scores 2 goals and an assist in that game, the game winner. Every time you put him in, it seems like he scores either 1 or 2 goals or has a productive night down the stretch. But going into the playoffs, he's not in your lineup because I think Rick Bowness still had this perception that he had hit the wall and his season was over. But after a week and a half off, he actually looked revitalized and looked like the same player he was at the start of the season.
Maybe even better.
After seeing some games from the press box, that coaches love to say, see a game from the press box. They could watch it. I haven't asked players if that notion really helps watching a game from the press box. But seriously, I think Cole Perfetti should be in the lineup. I think he will be in the lineup in Game 5. And I think the Jets, their best chance, again, they're down 3-1. I don't think they have any chance of winning the series, but I think their best chance is to run 4 balanced scoring lines and stop playing passive in the neutral zone and take it to the Avalanche rather than have them take it to you and play Lowry and tell Lowry to just play defense and let McKinnon walk into the zone and just protect the house and do all these things that it's just, oh, these players are special. We have to just back up and make sure that they don't get into the high danger slot area. But that's where they're getting repeatedly over and over again. Like, I'll let one of you go on this, but I have this chart here. I want to bring it up.
You can go ahead, Brian. I've got 2
talk
things.
about how, good God.
Look at that.
If you're on
audio, go ahead, Brent. Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, Connor just pulled up the 5-on-5 offense heat map as to where the shots are coming from. In short, everywhere, but also directly in front of Hellebuck. So clearly whatever game they're playing isn't working. But what I wanted to talk about, though, is mainly the fact that what you said, Connor, is what would probably pull them back into it, is actually trying to run a deeper lineup in terms of style. how, like,
Agreed.
if you ever noticed that the one time they didn't run a top 6, bottom 6 system, they went to the Western Conference Final? Every other
Yeah.
year, they have been stuck in the whole, it needs to be top 6, offense, bottom 6, grind, defense, whatever. That's not where it's at this point, it's not just on coaching, because we've seen it across every coach that has, coached in this organization, whether it's Claude Noel, Paul Maurice, Dave Lowry, and now Rick Bowness. They are stuck in the idea that the old fashioned, there has to be a top 6, bottom 6. There's no such thing as a top 9. If you run in ice time a top 9 where guys are able to actually flex their offensive muscles and still have a matchup line, which as it in name only as a 4th line,
Yeah.
you're going to be harder to match up against, because that's just how it works. Not everyone can defend. That's the thing. And other teams are doing this. Like, there's so many people who, try and oppose this notion of, oh, you need to have more grind in the playoffs and everything. Like, yeah, I get that, but also, have you not watched every other team in the playoffs have balanced scoring when they succeed? Like, I'm sorry, you look at Dallas, you look at Vegas. Obviously, Dallas is just, like, they're outplaying Vegas for the most part in the series, even though they're down. But their scoring has come all the way up and down the lineup all season. Vegas's lineup is incredibly deep. But you look at all of these teams, they have a fantastic offensive force on their top 3 lines, and they're using it to their advantage. And yet, every year it feels as if the Jets force their lineup into this mold of, you can only really have 2 dedicated, offensive lines, and then everything else is just either falls into line or it's a total defense. We're not going to put someone else on there because they're too offensive line.
And when one of those top 2 lines or both of those top 2 lines is not clicking and there have been no changes to them, I guess in game 4, they flipped Nino Niederreiter up to the top, to the second line with Monahan and Toffoli, and Nikolai Ehlers down to the third line with Lowry and Appleton. I don't know what that tweak
It's
is,
Band-Aid
to be honest.
solutions.
Yeah,
Like, at this point, like, you're just
yeah.
you're sticking a Band-Aid on a wound that's going to take your leg at this point, because
Yeah.
it's like, unless, and like Elliott said it earlier, where it's really not, like, obviously it is partially on the players, because there's guys that are invisible, guys that aren't performing to what we expected. But it's also the fact that these in-game adjustments that Bones is making is just flipping one dude and hoping everything else changes, when in reality it's maybe, take a piece off of them in the intermission and be like, hey, listen, systematically this isn't working. Let's try and adjust our game plan to better suit what the Avs are hitting us with, rather than just trying to trust your game, and your game is not translating against the speed and skill of the Avs, and anything that he's done in game hasn't been enough, and it's been very little to even try.
Yeah, and Mark Scheifele talked about it after the game. He had a actually pretty telling quote. Someone asked him, I believe, the difference between how you can like sweep a team in the regular season, basically, and then get outplayed like this in the playoffs. And he basically said they've made adjustments to their game from the regular season, and the Jets haven't. So take that as you will, but we're going to take a break. We're going to hear
Mark has some
DraftKings.
great little tidbits in his his media conferences, and he does not hide his poker face very well.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. I do have a question for the guys that I'm going to save for after the break. So listen to this word from DraftKings, and we will be right back. Stick with us on episode 88 of the Level Flight Podcast.
The chase for the Stanley Cup is on, and if you're looking to light the lamp, nothing beats DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. From the start of playoff beards all the way till hoisting the cup, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 88 of the Level Flight podcast. I want to take it back here to the time when Toby Enstrom was scratched in Game 5 of Brian's already mad at me. But I want to bring that up because I don't know, the line changes in the third period where Velarde and Niederreiter were on the fourth line technically, and AJF was on the second line, and the lineup decisions that we've made, and the fact that he said they're making lineup changes and Cole Perfetti is going to come in and Colin Miller is going to come in. Are we going to see a surprise scratch in Game 5? Elliott, I'll start with you. If I don't know, is Nikolai Ehlers is not a UFA this year, but he's a UFA next year. He's kind of struggled in this series. Cole Perfetti's coming in. I don't know. Could we see a surprise, oh, Nikolai Ehlers is scratched in Game 5, a message sent, do you think?
So here's my problem with that. And I know they did it with Toby, but if Rick Bowness wants to scratch Nikolai Ehlers, they shouldn't even drop the puck in Game 5. I'm just saying, if it's Nikolai Ehlers, they shouldn't even drop the puck, because you're telling me you're not even going to give Nikolai Ehlers the chance to have, because at some point he's normally due for an Ehlers game where he just has some magical plays and pushes the Jets in a winning direction. You're telling me you're not going to give that guy a chance to do that, right?
I more meant a player, a notable guy. It could be Velarde.
I'm just saying in terms of it better not be Ehlers. That's what I'm saying. If it's Velarde, fine. That one I would understand, because I'd rather have anybody else there right now. Velarde has been absolutely just non-existent. I'm sorry. He has not been anywhere up to snuff here in the playoffs, and it has nothing to do with he just hasn't generated anything. It has nothing to do with the physicality and this and that. Don't even get me started on any of that. But I think maybe somebody big comes out, but I also think that you got to remember that Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele aren't coming out, one, because they played well, and two, because Rick Bowness thinks they're the next coming of God. And then you have Velarde, who's a maybe. If he wants to pull Ehlers, that's a terrible decision, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a Monahan or a Toffoli, but you can't really pull Monahan because then you don't really have a second line center. So maybe it's Toffoli for Perfetti. And maybe it. And maybe Bones goes, maybe if I do this, Rick Bowness loves patterns. So maybe he'll think, oh, well, maybe if I take Toffoli out, Perfetti will score a hat trick and we win the game 12-11 or something. I don't know. That's what 11, yeah. That's what it really but that's what it really feels like at this point for the Jets to win, right? So either way, I think getting back to a big name, maybe, but I also feel like I think also at this point we've seen that Rick Bowness at times, when his back is against the wall, he's a lot of all talk, no show, to where I feel like he might say something in terms of, oh yeah, I'm going to make a ton of line changes, and then maybe pulls AJF out and Perfetti goes in on the fourth line and that's it. Maybe he shuffles the lines.
I can't see that happening. I think the lines will be different for sure.
Well, yeah, the lines will be different for sure. I just don't think he does anything in terms of making a full actual lineup changes, because that he is so set on the players that he has in his lineup are going to work. He can't accept the fact that they haven't done what he needs them to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brian, what do you think? Do you think there will be a surprise scratch in Game 5 of a notable player like there was Toby Enstrom?
I do think that there's going to be a lot of speculation that there might be. It feels, based on historical evidence, that if there was ever a big name to be scratched, it would be Ehlers, because there's clearly been stylistically a lot of, clashes there with what Bowness wants from him and what, Ehlers does, because he's usually the go-to, hey, I'm dropping you even if whether it's his fault or not. So it feels like if there's going to be, it's going to be Ehlers. That being said, I think what Elliott said is more true. Is a lot of what the dramatic lineup changes have been this year are the extent of you swap one dude out on the fourth line and then shuffle the rest of the deck and see what you've got. And so, I think like the most likely situation is, the saying that there's going to be some big moves and it's literally just going to be Perfetti in for AJF. And then you'll like put, someone up on the top line who isn't normally there, Velarde down to the third line or something. And, Iafallo will go up and play with Scheifele and Connor because they've played together before and something like that. And the big thing for me is going to be, what happens with the moves rather than who comes out, because it doesn't feel like he's going to make that earth-shattering, announcement that, oh yeah, Nikolai Ehlers is press box for a must-win Game 5.
Yeah.
But no, I did not need you to bring up the Toby Enstrom scratch on a day where I'm already miserable. That was, I remember seeing that. I've never been more upset at a lineup decision. And it effectively ended his career in the NHL.
Yeah. I hate to bring it up, but I had to ask, that's all you can do is ask. I if I had to guess, I'm going to side with both of you guys. I think while the thought of it is like, wow, they're reaching a breaking point here, they could theoretically do that. It is a must-win game. I think you got to ice your best lineup. And they simply haven't iced their best lineup in this series once. So I think, you might see like Ehlers and Toffoli on the fourth line or something, or something drastic in terms of that, but I don't think you'll see them scratched outright. But we will see. I do want to bring this up from Mike Kelly. He works with NHL Network and does some work with Sport Logic as well. He tweeted out this morning a tweet titled "Puck Management: Best Turnover Differentials in Chances and Goals Within 10 Seconds of a Turnover." The scoring chances: Colorado's up 29 scoring chances on the Jets within 10 seconds of a turnover, and they're up 7 goals on whatever the Jets have. But yeah, they're up 3-1 in the series. They're up 29 in scoring chances within 10 seconds of a turnover, and they're up 7 goals within those 29 chances. The turnovers, I just feel like the puck management has been an issue all year long, and it's the worst it's been at the worst time. I don't know if you guys agree. Brian, are you seeing kind of the same thing with the turnovers?
From the second the puck dropped in Game 1, aside from a few like 10, 15-minute spans, the Jets look like they are the way that they play with the puck feels like they are down 3 goals with 2 minutes left in the third period, and they're trying to create something. They're throwing passes wildly up the middle. They're rushing plays that they don't need to rush. They are just needlessly, dumping the puck out when they can carry it out. So you're just essentially giving the Avs another chance at bringing it in. And I know it doesn't count as a turnover, but their turnovers and their willingness to just give the puck back to Colorado has bit them to an extent of, I don't think anyone could have foreseen, because you should have put that on a shirt for the year, was just puck management with the Jets logo, with how much Bonus talked about it. And I mean, that's another sort of indictment of the lack of adjustments, where there's obviously a level of game planning you can do to not force plays like that. Like, I think you said it a couple episodes ago, where the Jets looked at their best when they were trying to complete the short passes in transition and not trying the stretch passes, which Colorado would just pick off and come back. They did that once in the series, and then that was when they looked at their best. I think that was in the first period of Game 3, maybe, where they actually looked like themselves.
The second period of Game 3.
Yeah, but regardless, they're not doing that. They're just trying to force things up the middle. Like, you've got guys throwing wild passes from their own goal line up to center, hoping to hit someone flying through the middle, but the Avs see it coming and they just pick it off, or they just break it up. Like, it's like you've completely abandoned anything and everything that comes with managing the puck well and they refuse to address it. It seems they just keep trying it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I want to shift gears. We are approaching 30 minutes here. Elliott, last thing, if the Jets are going to come back and win this series, they have to do what?
There's two things, and this kind of ties back to what Brian was saying. Obviously, puck management, but the Jets need to. I think this is the only time I will probably ever say this sentence ever. And great defense creates good and solid offense. I think what the Jets need to do is, as both of you mentioned, they are playing too much in terms of, they're trying to do, I'm going to use a quick soccer analogy here. It's like they're trying to counter press. They're trying to invite pressure and then use that pressure against the Avs to then try and push back the other way. But the problem is the Avs are coming at you with 3 to 4 skaters, and they normally have some sort of pressure release where as soon as there's a turnover, they have a third forward coming back with both defensemen, and there's nothing the Jets can do in terms of trying to counter press. What the Jets need to do is two things. They first, if Bones wants to, I'm going to say this, keep his job and wants to continue to coach playoff hockey in 2024, he needs to stop with just allowing the Avs to do whatever they want in the neutral zone and gain the zone. He needs to change up his strategy and put pressure on the Avs. That will allow them, who are a high-octane, fast team, to them start to make turnovers, and the Jets can then capitalize. At least then they can make up for their own mistakes if they're not going to manage the puck well, which they do need to make shorter passes. Quickly, the other thing that they need to do is go back to what they were doing in Game 1. I'm sorry, as much as he's won the goaltending battle, I have not been very convinced by Alexander Georgiev on most of the saves he's made. He's still looked very shaky, even if some of them are easy. Throw every single puck. Literally, I don't care if you turn into the Carolina Hurricanes for Game 5. Throw every single thing at the net, because probably something's going to go in that probably shouldn't, and it'll shake, at least it should shake Georgiev, and it might make the Avs think for a second, because right now,
100%.
They're literally, gears are just rolling, and they're not even worried about anything else. You need to rattle them somewhat to make them start to think, because right now they're just rolling, and the Jets need to do something to shake them off their stool here. Because if you can't 100%. Do that, then and I think it comes back to the goaltending advantage. I know I said that Connor Hellebuyck was going to have a game where he has a 40 save shutout or a 40 save 1 goal against. There's still a possibility, but if the Jets want to win, they might have to cater to the Avs style just a little bit. But I think it starts with just throwing pucks on net, and I think that's where they still have that goaltending advantage.
100%. I did the post game with Remus on WST, and in the comments there are tons of Avs fans, because we were saying like Georgiev's been good, like he hasn't had to do much because the Avs have just blown them out of the water in the 2 games in Denver, that it hasn't mattered. But when he's had to make saves, he's made some decent saves. He let in the weak goal in Game 3 to Foley. And then Avs fans were kind of pushing back on that in the comments, saying like, whoa, like, yeah, he's been fine, but like you guys aren't getting enough chances. Like you're not even making it an advantage. And I agree. Like Connor Hellebuyck is just, they pulled him for the third period, if you didn't see it, just to save him from getting another 50 shots against him. So they're going to play him in Game 5 as they should. He's the least of their problems right now. It's like he needed to be a little bit better in the first 3 games. Game 4 was literally all Avs all the time, and he did his best. He made a ton of good saves, and they still let up 4 goals in the first 40 minutes. But tonight is the night when you're hearing this. The Jets season could be over. Game 5 against the Colorado Avalanche at 8:30 p.m. in front of the Winnipeg Whiteout. It's been a great year if this is it. It's been really fun. 4th best team in the NHL during the regular season. 1st in regulation wins, 2nd in the West, and 2nd in the Central. And if they're out in 5 games, they're out in 5 games. But this could be it. So enjoy the game tonight. Thank you for listening to episode 88 of the Level Flight podcast. My name is Connor, Brian, and Elliott. The full crew was here today, and we really appreciate it. And join us again Thursday, for episode 89 of the Level Flight podcast. Hopefully we've got another game to preview. And then, of course, Sunday, we'll be going live for the 12th edition of LFP Live at 9 a.m. as we do every Sunday morning. So join us then. Enjoy the game tonight, everyone, and have a great couple days. We'll see you Thursday.